Our project has a very linear progression, as you can see by the Gantt chart in front of us. I'm opening up task dependencies number 3, a clean version of this, in order to take a look at the task constraints options that we have in Project 2007. So we've used the default constraint, which is as soon as possible, to set up the constraints that we have between our tasks. But let's explore some of the other types of constraints you can use in Project. And we'll do that by opening up our third task here by double-clicking on it to get the task information box available. Now, to take a look at the different kinds of constraints we have, let's go to the Advanced tab. And in the Advanced tab, you'll see the constraint task profiles or identifiers that you need to work with. Initially, you want to identify whether or not there is a deadline associated with this particular constraint. If you click on the downward pull-down list, you will be presented with a calendar that allows you to select a specific deadline date if there is a requirement to have that associated with that particular task. Deadline is always associated with a date. Now, underneath there, you have your different constraint types. And if you pull down this particular list, you have the options that are available. As soon as possible, I said, is the default. And that will allow this task to start on the date as soon as it can possibly be fit within the project schedule. As late as possible is also an option that you can choose, and that will have the task start as late as possible without delaying the start of any successor tasks. You have the options to finish no earlier than or no later than a particular date. And again, on these ones, when you select that, you must set the date in this constraint date over here. When do you want these tasks to finish? No later or no earlier than. You can also set the constraint so that the task must finish on or start on a particular date. Again, you must identify a date constraint with that selection. And your final choices are that the task should start no later than and no earlier than a particular date. So these are all date dependent. As late as possible and as soon as possible have no constraint dates on it. You're going to let the power of the application determine when these particular dates will be plugged into your schedule. So, as soon as possible is the default that Microsoft Project works with, and is the one that we've worked with most often when setting up our project plans. To set them, you will say OK, and the dependencies and constraints will be assigned to that particular task. The final movie in this chapter is going to take a look at what happens when conflicts arise when you're setting up the dependencies.